Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. If you're paying attention, you know that you only make money when you work. It might be great money, but it's dependent on you. The information on this podcast will help you solve that. We interview experts and provide analysis into financial freedom through commercial real estate. Why? To help physicians like you thrive. Let's dive in.
Welcome to Surgeon Syndicate. This is your host, Dr. Michael McManus. And today we're talking about leveling up your game and who you're sitting at the table with. Last week, I went to a conference called the Invest Beyond Multifamily Conference. It's a small real estate meeting that focuses on investing in the stuff we talk about here in other asset classes besides residential and multifamily. Again, those are things like retail and industrial. So the great thing about this meeting, the first time I went to this meeting was last February. I wanted to go because I wanted to meet in person Ash Patel, who puts on the meeting. And I first learned of Ash because he's a host on a podcast called the Best Ever Podcast. And he talked about these things like we talk about here, all these different creative deals and these really cool things. And so I wanted to meet this guy. So I actually initially, when I took the time off and then it got busy as doctors do, and I forgot to book my plane ticket and everything. And it wasn't until I saw this gap on my schedule and went and asked our office manager, I was like, well, what is this? And then I had to go back and I dug through my schedule. And I was like, oh my goodness, that was that conference I wanted to go to. So I rushed and I got everything booked and I flew to Atlanta. And really, I just wanted to say hello and meet some people and listen. And although I went mainly to meet Ash, the people who were there were incredible. And so I got more out of these relationships than I ever could have expected. And it really put me in a room with a whole group of people that could level up what I was doing with my investing. Now, the trouble with this is you get in these spots, and if you're the dumbest guy in the room, it's always going to be easy to go forward because you just kind of get drug along. It's like the draft, and you're just pulled along with them. But if you want to stay in that group, you have to find some way to add value, some way to help. There were a few questions about urologic things, but most of them we probably shouldn't talk about on this show. And so it was really hard to try and find where I could add value. And so I found spots here and there, but most of it was just when somebody wants to teach you something, everybody loves to teach what they're great at. And there's students who engage and you hear them listening, and then you love to teach that person. There's other ones that you're not really sure they're paying attention. It's really the best thing I could do with this group was just engage as best I could, and then try and help anybody in the group in any way I could. How that turned out is I actually put some friends in some of their deals. I joined in some of their deals as we were, working through and getting to know each other. But the people I met here again in this game of leveling up really changed the trajectory of my life. So just got back last week from the second one of these conferences I'd been to. And I posted a few things on social media, but this meeting really, they leveled up and the people that they brought, there were a couple keynote speakers. One was Joe Fairless. Joe started the Best Ever Podcast. He's a principal at Ashcroft Capital, and he built a business in a relatively short period of time that is now a very large multifamily syndicator. And his story is awesome. If somebody wants to look at it, his first deal, when he went to buy his first big apartment building, it was totally a flop. And he came back and spent the next years not only making all of his investors whole, but also giving them the returns they needed or they had expected. And none of them really expected it because that's, there's some risk with investing. But he did that, and he kind of built a name on that for being a guy of super high moral character. And then the other speaker was a guy named Nate Barger, and he's out there a lot on social media too. And his story was this guy had gone to jail, and he said it was the best thing that happened to him because after he got out, he couldn't get a job, so he had to build something of his own. But really what he talked about, again, was leveling up and going to that next level. And so this all feeds back into a couple of my favorite books, and these are by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. One of the first one is called Who Not How, and the whole idea behind this book is that if you have a problem to solve, you're going to solve it a lot faster and a lot better by finding somebody who that's really what they do best versus trying to learn something that maybe is outside of your strength. So from, when we're in residency and you're going through with your training, you didn't learn how to do a prostatectomy from somebody who specialized in kidney stones. You learned it from somebody who that was really what they did. And so that was the person who helped you raise your game. They were the who. So when a lot of the times when we're doctors, we're so used to studying that we forget that we don't need to know everything. And when you go to learn something new, if you can get in the room with the who's, they can really help you raise your game. And that's what I was thinking about when I was thinking about these two conferences, is these are really the who's. But then the second book by Dan Hardy, and it's not that they've written multiple books, but the other one is called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And the point of this book is that it's often easier to level your game up 10 times than it is 2 times. And this one, it took me a while I was listening to it, but the idea is usually if you're trying to just go twice as far, you accomplish that by working twice as hard, but you can't work 10 times as hard. You're just not going to get there. So the 10X idea is you got to rethink the whole plan, think big, really delve into your strengths, and look for the people who can really lift you up and pull you to that next level. And once I started thinking about this, and I said, okay, well, let's look at what I'm doing and see if I can challenge myself to really go to the next level. And the funny thing is it's like, we hear things when we're ready to hear it. And I realized at this meeting, there wasn't a whole lot that I heard that it was the first time I had heard it. But there were a lot of things that I heard that I was ready for now, that I'd reached a new place in what I was doing and I could hear it. And because I was thinking about this whole 10X thing, then I was ready to kind of suck some of this in and see what I could do with it. So while I was there, we were talking about this podcast, and I want to thank everybody who's listening because our success has been amazing. The number of downloads are far greater than anything I could have expected. So that is because of the people who helped me put it together and coached me on how to put it together and how to do this whole thing, and the amazing guests who have agreed to come on the show, and all the people who have listened to it. So thank you to all of you. So right when I'm feeling really good about this, and I was talking to some people at this conference about, wow, look at these downloads. It's so much better than I expected. And they're like, wow, that's really cool. Now you're ready to really do something with it. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? We've done something with it. And basically it was all of a sudden I had this, this is the 10X moment. These guys are asking me and telling me, let's really step up here. So, how we can take the podcast that people are listening to. And right now, I don't think it's set up very well for the people who maybe want to engage the podcast further and put some links in it to connect to the books that I talk about, some of the conferences that I talk about. So it'd be really easy to just go to the show and find that, and you don't have to go look for it yourself. People have been asking me about the podcast equipment I use, so we can put that kind of stuff in there. And that's really cool, but also starting to connect people who are interested in investing and who say, listen, this stuff is awesome. It sounds cool to do it yourself, but I really don't have time for that because I'm still fully engaged in being a surgeon, and I love being a surgeon. I love what I do, but I've heard about this now, and I want to find out more about where I can do it. And so that it'll be easier to both connect with those people, but maybe even some investor portals, and people have been asking me, hey, what are you doing? And, you know, I've been listening to your stuff, and people I've known for years, where are you putting your money? So we're starting to build something out there that people can invest alongside. And this is something I'd love to hear feedback on, that maybe a way that people can tip their toes in the water, dip their toes in the water, and with a little less risk, because that's how I started. I was looking for the deals that I get the smallest amount I could put in and just kind of put it in there. And I knew that once I put my money in it, I was going to pay more attention than if I was just reading. So I started out with smaller ones, and some of those deals weren't that great. So far, none of them have gone really sideways, but they're, you know, it helped me learn by being in it. And then I started hearing more about where was the next level. But when I started, I didn't really know anybody who was doing it. So I didn't have someplace that I could, you know, kind of start out low. And so one of the ideas was, you know, having a fund that people could do minimal investments that was kind of their give it a shot. Now, as you look at a lot of syndications, the minimal investments can be high, often 50,000 or 100,000. With some of the really quality people, it might even be 250,000. So even if you have that much to put in one deal, that's a lot if it's your first trip. So, you know, we were looking at putting the reason that those numbers are big is because the more investors you have in the smaller numbers, there's just more administration. There's more K1s to get out. There's more people to talk to. So it's easier to run an operation with fewer investors. But there's not a lot of great places to kind of get in at a low number and give it a try. So we started looking at some things like that where we start bringing that to the people listening to the show. And then at the same time, as we're talking about this and trying to build out this whole back end. So look for that. We should have a new website coming for the show, for Fortress Capital. And with that, more resources for our investors that are directed more at doctors. Since that's really been our mission here. But then beyond that, as soon as I opened this thought process, I started having some very experienced people who have had some great success and been doing this for a long time, who are looking to expand what they're doing, especially in the retail space, because it's been this overlooked space. It's starting to pick up momentum and saying, hey, do you want to jump in this deal with us? And do you have people who want to come with you? When we were having this conversation, and all of a sudden, there that was in front of me. And so there were other opportunities. And I'm sure all of these opportunities were there before. I just wasn't seeing them because I wasn't in a place to be ready for them. And so I think the whole point of this and why I wanted to share this experience is whatever you're doing in your life, whether it's your investing, whether it's your family, whether it's, your business as a doctor or just your skill level as a surgeon, it's really easy to get into a place of complacency and kind of be, I'm doing a good job and just kind of go with it. But I challenge you here to really look at that 10x versus 2x, not how could I double what I'm doing? Because that's just going to make you think about how to work twice as hard, most likely, maybe not. But if you try and think, how can I be 10x as good? That's a big stretch. And you're going to have to really look into what are the things that you're really good at and you really enjoy doing and really engage those. And then who are the people that you need to take that to the next level and reach out to them? A lot of the time, I've been guilty of this. where I think, well, why do they want to talk to me? And that these are people above my level. But when you reach out, it's incredible who will, you may get some, it's like being the door-to-door salesman. You get some doors slammed in your face, but you're also going to have people want to help you on that journey and interact with you. And if you keep looking and you keep pushing, you're going to find those. So, final thing to end this this show is a quick story about my daughter who's off at college. She's in business school, and she was doing this project, and we were talking, and she's like, "Yeah, I have to interview somebody in the music business because this project was about a kind of a combination of music and business, which are her things." And so she's learning about LinkedIn. She's a freshman in college. And she's like, well, who could I reach out to? I'm like, well, shoot for the top. So she reached out to one of the top execs in the Amazon music business, said, hey, I need to interview somebody for a school project. And guess what? They got back to her. This is who. So she probably, from the business side of music, is a freshman at college, was able to interview for her project one of the most important people in the world because she was willing to ask, say, hey, you're amazing. Can you help me level up? So that's your challenge. I challenge everybody to look at where they could really level up to the next level. Shoot big about where you'd really want to be and would make you really happy. And find who are the people that can help you get there and reach out to them. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope this has added a lot of value to your life, and join us for the next episode of Surgeon Syndicate. This has been an episode of Surgeon Syndicate. If you got value from this episode, you know other surgeons are hungry to become job optional, and you can help them by sharing this content today. Schedule a call, and we can make a plan. Looking forward to having you with me on the next episode.